everybody. This is Dr. Marianne Pinkston, and welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. I am looking at neuroregeneration and some discussions with a great neurologist that is out in Florida, and Dr. Gordon Crozier from the Crozier Clinic in Lake Mary, Florida, I think, and I want to make sure I get that right. But Dr. Crozier has worked a very long time with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and many neurological diseases. I think he has a close to his heart ADD and autism, and has worked with peptides. And so we want to discuss a little bit about peptides and what is coming in the future. I know Dr. Gordon Crozier, welcome. I am so glad to have you on finally. We've waited too long. I apologize.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
It's good to be with you.
Well, great. Well, I know I have met you through A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine, and you do a lot of great work with them. And so give me a little bit of background and kind of tell us what you are doing now to turn the tide on neuroregenerative issues.
So I'm working with another physician who happens to be on faculty at many well-renowned universities. And we are honing down our study, and we do have some approval for the study. So we're going to be able to use some peptides that are not currently in the United States or legal in the United States. But we have approval to begin to use some of them in the study process to see how people and the best modalities for patients with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. We have to hone it down. We're only allowed to do Parkinson's for the first study, but we will be widening that scope as we go along, including different ADHD and other things, because it seems like for ADHD, that medications will work, but they only work for so long. And then some of those medications cause some other neuroinflammatory responses so that they can have other issues longer afterwards. So we want to, if they're going to have to be on those medications, how can we offset those side effects from the medications? Right. And or are there better options? Maybe with peptides, maybe with some other modalities that can be used.
Gotcha. And
so we've been doing a lot of that.
That's wonderful. And it's so cutting edge, let me tell you. Explain a little bit about peptides. I really don't think people understand peptides. It's not a mainstream thing.
Yeah. So peptides, there's a lot. So I have some of my patients getting peptides from an illegal source online that we don't even know if they're really truly the peptide that they say they are, but they've been buying some peptides on there. So peptides are kind of one of those things, and they're using peptides in creams for anti-aging and things like that. Unfortunately, we're finding out now that they combine a lot of those peptides all together. It becomes nothing but goo. And so you're spending a lot of money for these creams for your face, but they become goo. But peptides actually are amino acids. They're amino acids that are in shorter chains. So any amino acid chain of peptides longer than 21 has now been outlawed by the FDA. So we can only work with peptides that are less than 21 amino acids in a wavelength. Any amino acids that are 50 amino acids in a chain or more are proteins. And so that comes into a different subset. Mm-hmm. But peptides have these disulfide bonds. Disulfide bonds are kind of weak bonds that kind of hold them together. Some of the most critical peptides for our body happen to be very short chains, like 2 or 3 amino acids in a chain, very short. But those amino acids, and everybody's heard of glutathione now because it's on the market everywhere. Yeah. Of course, 90% of the glutathione on the market is not bioavailable. Of course, you and I know somebody that has created one that is bioavailable now. Yes. And which is very, very
cool. PD Labs, we'll throw them a bone. There you go.
Yeah. We'll throw them out there because they're a good group. But that form, we're seeing really, I'm seeing a difference. Even over IV forms, that it's working better to give that form, which is truly a bioavailable form because it gets into the cell instantly.
Right.
But that is one critical peptide that actually helps and triggers over 400 different functions in our body. Everybody thinks it's just a detoxification, anti-aging. No, it's not. It's just, it triggers, you're carrying oxygen to the different cells in your body. It helps with an inflammatory process. And it's kind of critical because it's one of the main amino acids that kind of triggers some of the other peptides to come in to help with anti-inflammatory. So,
Right.
So there's a plethora of anti-inflammatory peptides that actually, if you don't have glutathione and you don't have enough glutathione working at a cellular level, the other peptides are really not going to work as well. Such as thymulin. Thymulin's a good all-around peptide. It comes from the thymus gland. That's why it's called thymulin. But it works extremely well. And so that's kind of where we're triggering a lot of our study is how can we use some of these peptides to decrease neuroinflammation? Because neuroinflammation is what drives neurological diseases. So when you have neuroinflammation, like you have somebody coming in with essential tremors, or maybe it's not essential tremors, but it's a different form or type of tremors because there's different types of tremors.
Sure.
And so intentional or essential tremors, those are two main categories of tremors. So if you're having that, a lot of that is actually due to a central inflammatory response that happens first centrally, neurologically, and then that inflammatory response actually drives out. So that then when you're trying to pick up a pencil or whatever, your hand starts to shake a little bit. And so we see that, and that I see a ton of those people, and that really drives a response where they're having a hard time with their daily tasks because they're having a hard time even holding a fork or a spoon to feed themselves because the tremors get so difficult.
Yes.
And so that is one of the things, or how can these essential peptides, and I call them essential peptides, just like we have essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Those amino acids are making up these peptides. And so that's what I look at first is, what are you deficient on? Are you deficient on specific amino acids? So any physician can look at your amino acid profile and say, hey, you're low on this amino acid, or you're maybe high on this other amino acid. Why are you high on this other amino acid? So we need to kind of look at that first to discover which peptides are going to be the pertinent peptides for that specific person. And that's what we're trying to do and do in a way that can be done easily for other physicians, because it gets kind of complicated for a lot of, I don't care how studied we are, we kind of get wrapped up. And, me, because you've heard me lecture at A4M before, I get kind of a little bit, I like to get on that cerebral side of things, and I like to delve into the research and all that. So me actually being involved with these studies that are going to be going on is kind of fun. So it's going to be these are going to be multi-centered studies. So we're going to have several of them. We're going to have some out of New York, Virginia, and then here in Florida. Those are going to be the three main areas. And we've already recruited some patients to begin the first phase of the study. Excellent. So. And we got approval from the FDA. So that's the nice thing.
Now, that is a huge step, really, because peptides the FDA has been very, very resistant. And we've had a multitude of wonderful peptides that have done wonderful work that have been banned and unable to use. And it's such a sad situation because the peptides are very, I can say it, very miraculous. And I know I've seen you guys all work with some incredible neurological patients who have come to life, literally, from very, very deep, dark, even vegetative states. And so why the resistance? Why is the FDA and the government so resistant?
I think part of it is big pharma wants they want to control it.
Sure.
And we can see that in the weight loss
Oh yeah.
arena right now, how they're controlling some of the peptides,
Right.
And they aren't going to let anybody else use them.
Right. And so
But big
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So
Excuse
big pharma, they're the largest payers to the FDA.
me.
I mean, we all do. Like, look at some of the compounding pharmacies.
Right.
They have to pay for the FDA to come into these compounding pharmacies to investigate them, to look at them. So anytime they come to us, we're the ones that have to pay for that.
Right.
But and it's the same thing with big pharma. They come in, they have to pay these big bucks out to the FDA.
Right.
But if you look at I don't know if you've looked on Netflix on the OxyContin one,
Right.
but look at how they paid big bucks out to the FDA to be able to get it approved, even though everybody knew that this was going to cause huge addiction issues.
Yes.
So it's all in who has the most money to be able to pay to the government agencies, right, because that's what happens. And I hate to say that, because I used to really believe, I worked at the university. Mm-hmm. I was in traditional medicine for a long, long time. For 20 years, I was in traditional medicine. I only believed in traditional medicine until I actually started going to A4M, mm-hmm, and I started to listen, and I said, hey, there's another thing going on here, which actually opened up my eyes to my own health. Yes. And what was going on with me, and why was I passing out doing surgery, and why was I passing out while I was trying to do surgical tasks, and, why was I in so much pain, but it opened up this whole new realm to me, where traditional medicines weren't really working. And it's not that I don't believe in traditional medicine. I do. That's how I was trained.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, today and in today's world, we're throwing out a lot of legitimate science, mm-hmm, because it's not paying enough.
Right.
And what? We were physicians. We went into practice to literally help people. Yes. Look at you. You help so many people because you have transformed your life.
Right.
And it's the same thing with me. And that's why I get a lot of patients, because they hear my story. They hear what I went through. Yeah. They hear all the things that I had to endure in my life that actually helped me to help others, because right, I found another path where I didn't throw medicines out, but I actually introduced another alternative things, and we'll call them alternative because they're not. When you talk to traditional medicine, they are traditional doctors. A lot of them are going like, what's that? I don't even know what that is,
So true.
But we just try to educate them one at a time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're so right. And every integrative physician has a story. And you're right. This is how we begin to touch others' lives. And I had the same eye-opening experience going through A4M, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and did just that. Wonderful, wonderful. And so much science. Science. And I thought it was all quackery as well. And until I saw the actual science, I'm like, well, I can't ignore this anymore. There's just no way to do it. And we're going to come up on a break in just a minute. I want everybody to hear where they can find and read more about you. I know you also have written some books. I hope you're getting ready it sounds like you're getting ready to write another one on peptides. Cannot wait for that. And thank you for being transparent too about the FDA. I know one of the things that I think about now as I watched TV this weekend, which I barely do, but football is on. I'm such a football nut. And so now I'm seeing all the commercials for all the biologics, and just that is where traditional medicine is going. And each one is $6,000 to $30,000 a month for a patient. And so I think peptides, in my mind, is a great alternative for still a little bit expensive, but not like that. And I think it's a great alternative. Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with it. I have several athletes that I actually treated that were on a ton of biologics. And, some of the peptides are outlawed by the sports industry. So I had a hard time, but I wrote a letter for some of these, some of my patients that were actually athletes, because they failed all the biologics.
Right.
So I had one, he had failed every single biologic on the market. Nothing worked for him. Right. And he tried them all diligently. But you know what? When I got him on some peptides and we got approval for him to be on it for 8 months,
right,
he got better.
Of course.
He got better.
Of course.
So then when the sporting industry would not approve any more peptides for him, he went off of it and he was good for about 3 months. And he started getting a lot of his symptoms back and a lot of things started coming back. He says, you know what? I'd rather be a coach at a high school level than I would having to live like this and try to do sports like this because I just can't perform and I can't do it. Absolutely. Not when I'm having these issues. Right. And so he left. And then, so now his wife is, I'm trying to treat her, but she's she's going to be competing in the next coming Olympics. Wow. So, you know, but so, can't, so I can't do things with her, you know, I can't. But it makes it very difficult when you're dealing with things that are you're not allowed to use in certain patients.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on the break. I want to say something really, really quick about a few people who have supported me and taken good care of me this year. Fatty liver research in South Texas. South Texas is absolutely rampant with fatty liver, and you've seen the San Antonio restaurant scene, I'm sure, before. So pinnacleresearch.com, Pinnacle Research Texas is a great source for research, liver research. All the doctors that are over there have a great tool called the FibroScan, where you can go and get a free FibroScan, and also Magna Pharmaceuticals. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Dr. Crozier. Dr. Lesser over at magnaweb.com works with de novo a methylfolate, and MTHFR is something that I believe in very much. Please tell us where patients can or people can find you and your information.
So, you know what? I don't even advertise much, actually. I get most of my patients from word of mouth. And so actually I am bringing in another physician and another physician assistant, but you know, it takes me a while to train them up. Right. But they can find me. I have a website. It's Crozier Clinic. So crozierclinic.com. They can find me there. And that's getting revamped now. Good. So my wife kind of is a big, you know, she's the business person behind it. I don't want to deal with it, and I don't deal with finances. I don't deal with any of that stuff. I just deal with. I want to see the people. So that's probably the best way. Okay. And I also have a phone. My office phone number is 407-732-7668. So that's a good way as well.
Well, we are going to take a short break. If anybody wants to find us, I'll have your information on drpbetterlife.com. Going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Fatty liver is linked to two different situations, alcohol and diabetes or obesity. In both cases, patients can have no symptoms. In the United States, and in particular, Texas, the most common cause of liver disease in general is non-alcoholic fatty liver. Again, associated with overweight, obesity, and or diabetes. Additional risk factors include high cholesterol, high blood pressure, Hispanic ethnicity, and postmenopausal status. At Pinnacle Clinical Research, we offer a quick, non-invasive ultrasound-based screening assessment called FibroScan. This test is done at no cost to you, and we do not take insurance. The test will measure the fat and stiffness in your liver and stage your risk and development of fatty liver disease. You will meet with a provider immediately following your scan to go over your results. If you're interested in getting more information on your liver health, please call 210-529-7978 and schedule your FibroScan today. We are conveniently located in the Medical Center at 5109 Medical Drive.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston with The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston, and today I have Dr. Gordon Crozier out in Florida who works a lot. We've been talking a lot about peptides. Dr. Crozier teaches a lot about peptides and kind of got those defined, does a lot of work with neurology and neuroregeneration. When we were talking about peptides earlier, I failed to mention that the common peptides that people have heard of are insulin or the GLP medications that patients are using. You mentioned it for weight loss. So those are some of the common ones, but there are so many. And I know you tend to work more in the neurology department with neuroregeneration. We have a lot that occurs, like you mentioned, with neurology, that there's death of neurological cells, and that is where, and inflammation, and then death. And that's where a majority of our neurological diseases come from. So I know you have worked a lot with peptides in that department. Explain more.
So these peptides, as I said earlier, number one, we get the peptides for reducing inflammation, neuroinflammation, like KPV, like thymulin. They help with decreasing that neuroinflammatory response. As we decrease that neuroinflammatory response, we also want to be able to increase things that help neurologically, like Cmax and C-Lank. And we know that PD Pharmacy makes great nasal sprays for C-Lank and Cmax. And a lot of my Parkinson's patients have been on those for many years now, which has really helped them maintain having a steadiness, better gait, better those things. So we know that those things help. When you're talking about neuroregeneration, some of the things we want to introduce is maybe doing some of these peptides IV so that we can actually get enough quantities neurologically. So they'll cross the blood-brain barrier. As they cross the blood-brain barrier, then they can help with all that neurological things. So we have to first set up MRIs to look at the brain first, and other things like brain mapping. And we get all of those studies ahead of time so that you can kind of follow their neuroregenerative patterns to see where we need to go. So there are certain peptides that we actually need some fats to help with it. So there's some fats, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, all those things. But you can give those things IV-wise, which actually will cross the blood-brain barrier and will help with some of the detoxification of the fat cells in the brain, so that then you can introduce things like dihexa, which we have to be very careful on how we're using it right now, because dihexa is actually a pharmaceutical. So, right. They took over that one. So some of the peptides have been taken over by pharmaceuticals. Yeah. And so we have to be careful with how we use that dihexa one. We can't, tout it out there like we could before.
Exactly.
But there's other ones as well to help with the regeneration neurologically. So those are the things that you can do. But what do we ask the people to do in the meantime? Well, we ask them to stimulate their brain. So to do word puzzles, to do different things to keep their brain active. The other part of that is actually staying active physically.
Yes.
Because we know that physically being active helps neurological health. Why? Number one, it's going to help increase blood supply neurologically to the brain, which we have to do. But it actually gives you a better self-image. When you feel better about yourself, you have better positive effects neurologically, that's part of my book that I'm in the process of writing is, your self-talk. What does your self-talk, what are you really telling yourself? And a lot of us don't realize what we're really telling ourselves when we're speaking to ourselves. So I tell people, you're going to do words of affirmation. You're going to look yourself in the eye, in the mirror every single morning. This is how you're going to start your day. You're going to start by telling yourself words of affirmation that, yes, I am worth it. I am worth getting better. I am getting better.
Right.
I am a good person. I am. So you start constantly are telling yourselves these things. It begins to sink into your brain neurologically.
Yep.
And then doing neurostimulation where you have certain tools and things that usually has to be done at a physician's office. But there are other things that you can get that can stimulate your brain neurologically as well. And then doing, different entities. And even we're finding there's a doctor out of Harvard doing some studies on red light therapy, the transcranial red light therapy and what it does. So, here we've been doing IVs. We put the red light therapy on, the one that they're doing the study with, because not all red light therapy is the same,
exactly.
But the one that they're actually doing the study with at Harvard. So because, we know that it does the transcranial red light therapy does seem to be working. So doing an IV at the same time is kind of one of those things that kind of help with that neurological health.
Well, you have so much coming down the pipeline. We have so much that we could go over. So I'm going to invite you back again and again. Dr. Crozier, you're stuck. That's it. But we really would love to. Hey, tell everybody where we can find you. One more time, your website.
So my website, it's CrozierClinic.com. So Dr. Crozier at CrozierClinic.com. So that's, you can get me there.
Yes, great website. And then all of this information will be on my website at drpbetterlife.com, as well as all of my previous shows. And you can find more information about my sponsors as well, who I again thank. And I hope when you get this book out, I get a signed copy of it. That's my tradition now, is to ask all my guests for a signed copy of their books. Send one out. But so when do you expect some of this information and these studies to reach the public where we will begin to benefit?
Well, this is going to be a 2-year study, so it's going to take a little bit of time for the study, but we're working pretty diligently at it.
All right.
And we have part of our funding, so we have to get part of our funding is actually coming from outside of the United States,
right?
Because there's some people in some of these other countries that had some help. So we have to work with them as well. So
great. Well, I am looking very forward to it, and we will keep everybody up to date. I thank you very, very much for being on with me. It's always an honor to speak with you, and I hope everybody out there has a fantastic week. I'll have all this information on drpbetterlife.com. Dr. Crozier, thank you so much.
Thank you.